So today, we're going to talk about some of the worst days in our planet's modern history. Now, we're not talking about ancient asteroid impacts or ice ages. No, these are moments from our own lifetimes, or maybe our parents, that are just these really stark reminders of how fragile our world is. Let's dig in and see what these moments can teach us. But what really makes a day one of the worst? Is it just about the scale of destruction or the number of lives lost? Well, as we're about to see, the answer is a lot deeper than that. It's really about those moments that completely change how we understand the world and, our place in it. And that's why it's probably more useful to think of these events not just as horrible tragedies, but as days of revelation. Yeah, revelation. They're these moments that just peel back the surface of our everyday lives and show us something raw and something very true about our existence. So, what do they reveal? Well, they show us just how fragile our incredibly complex societies really are. They challenge this idea we have that progress is just this unstoppable force. And maybe most of all, they absolutely shatter the illusion that we are ever fully in control. These are the days the planet reminds us of its power and of our own limits. Some of these revelations, they arrive with terrifying speed. So let's start with those, the sudden, violent disruptions that change literally everything in an instant. 230,000. On December 26, 2004, a massive undersea earthquake triggered a devastating tsunami that ripped across the Indian Ocean. It claimed over 230,000 lives. It was just a brutal, raw display of nature's power, a reminder that the ground beneath our feet isn't nearly as solid as we like to think. But some of the most sudden disruptions are entirely of our own making. On this day, the city of Hiroshima was just vaporized by an atomic bomb. And this wasn't just a new weapon. This was the moment humanity unlocked the power of its own extinction. It was truly the dawn of the nuclear age. And then, just 40 years later, that same atomic power turned against us completely by accident. The Chernobyl disaster showed us how a single technological error, a failed safety test, of all things, could poison a huge landscape for generations. It was a totally new kind of catastrophe, one with an invisible, lingering poison. And then, of course, there are the days that unfold with the speed of a nightmare, right in front of our eyes. The events of September 11, 2001 all took place in less than 2 hours. The relentless pace of it all just sent this psychological shockwave across the entire globe, completely reshaping politics in a matter of minutes. But not all of Earth's worst days arrive with a bang. Some of them unfold slowly, silently, building up over years until a critical point is finally reached. These are the slow, silent crises. On this day, a NASA scientist named James Hansen testified before the U.S. Congress, and he made this incredibly clear public declaration: human-induced global warming had begun. Now, this wasn't a physical disaster happening on that day, but it was a day of reckoning, a planetary alarm that, honestly, most of the world was just not ready to hear. And the consequences of not listening? Well, decades later, in 2020, Death Valley recorded one of the hottest temperatures ever measured on Earth, 54.4 degrees Celsius. This isn't just a weather report. It's the tangible, scorching result of that silent crisis Hansen warned us all about. The planetary scale of this problem became impossible to ignore in July of 2012. Satellites observed that in just 4 days, 97% of Greenland's massive ice sheet had started to melt on the surface. An event that was once thought to be pretty much impossible was now a shocking reality, and it was accelerating sea level rise across the globe. Sometimes a silent crisis finally gets a name, and on this day, the World Health Organization declared COVID-19 a global pandemic. A virus that had been spreading quietly for months now brought the entire world to a standstill, revealing just how interconnected and how incredibly vulnerable our global civilization really is. So, what connects a nuclear meltdown, a global pandemic, and a melting ice sheet? In a word, us. It seems that more and more Earth's worst days bear the unmistakable mark of human activity. Scientists actually have a name for this new era, the Anthropocene. It's the age where humanity has become the single most powerful force shaping the planet's systems. And that forces a pretty profound question, right? What is our responsibility when we are no longer just inhabitants of the world, but its primary architects? And you can see the shift right here. It's undeniable. The 2004 tsunami, a totally natural event. But Chernobyl was caused by human error. Climate change is driven by human activity. And the COVID pandemic is this kind of hybrid, a natural virus whose spread was massively amplified by our globalized world. The trend is crystal clear. And yet, all of these events reveal two conflicting truths at the same time. On the one hand, they expose our profound fragility, how easily our systems can be shattered. But on the other hand, they also reveal a surprising resilience. Nature starts to reclaim the Chernobyl exclusion zone. Humans rebuild cities and, hopefully, learn from their mistakes to create new safeguards. And that brings us right back to our central idea. The source material for this explainer puts it perfectly. The worst days are not merely those of destruction, but of revelation. They force us to see the world and ourselves as we truly are. So we've been shown our limits, time and time again. We've seen the fragility of all our progress and the consequences of our own power. So the ultimate question becomes, have these revelations also taught us wisdom? That's the thought I'll leave you with.